and therefore Mr. Gandhi, by virtue of those 99 MPs, got to be the leader of the opposition. Now, what is the job of the leader of the opposition? His singular job is to hold the government's feet to the fire. That is, to ensure that there is accountability for the government and that they can't simply be seen as getting away with it. So then how is Mr. Gandhi faring in his job? How is he stacking up so far? In the debates that have happened so far in Parliament in the last 8 or 9 months, Mr. Gandhi has clocked 7 appearances, meaning he has taken part in 7 debates. He's either begun those debates or he has intervened in those debates. The national average for any MP in the current Lok Sabha, the 18th Lok Sabha, is a little over 9. So Mr. Gandhi is too short of the average for other MPs. But Mr. Gandhi is not exactly, taking the lead beyond what the average for other MPs is. In terms of questions asked, because that again is a big privilege that members of parliament have, they get to ask questions of the government. Mr. Gandhi so far has asked 10 questions. This is a critical tool for any opposition leader to probe the centre, whether it's on unemployment, whether it's on electoral rolls. These are issues that Mr. Gandhi has talked about. 10 questions to his account. The average for all other MPs stands at 38. That is a fairly big gap. It's almost 4 times the number of questions that Mr. Gandhi has asked. So the question is he punching hard enough, or is the BJP deliberately drowning him out? The Speaker's gavel has not exactly been an ally. That's what Mr. Gandhi has been repeatedly claiming, that his voice is being muzzled. Then there is, of course, every individual MP can bring in a private member bill. These are legislations that are usually brought forth on Fridays. This is pitching outside of the government's agenda. Mr. Gandhi, so far in the 9 or 10 months that he's been leader of the opposition, he has not brought forth a single private member bill. But for a leader who's vowing to shake things up, this sort of a blankish slate, if I can use that phrase, is standing out. He's banking on speeches over substance, or is he simply playing the long game in the hope that he can get his voice heard in the long term and that ultimately his voice will prevail no matter how much the government tries to muzzle it?
लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन को एक कन्वेंशन है कि बोलने दिया जाता है। जब भी मैं खड़ा होता हूं मुझे बोलने नहीं दिया जाता है, ठीक है? तो पता नहीं मतलब ये किस प्रकार से हाउस चल रहा है। जो हम कहना चाहते हैं हमें कहने नहीं देते। उस दिन प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कुंभ मेला के बारे में बोला, मैं अपनी बात जोड़ना चाहता था। मैं कहना चाहता था हाँ बहुत अच्छा है कि कुंभ मेला हुआ, और मैं बेरोजगारी के बारे में भी कुछ कहना चाहता था, नहीं बोलने दिया।
In 0 hour today, will they be allowed today? In 0 hour today, will they be allowed today?
आप सबसे अपेक्षा की जाती है कि आप सदन की मर्यादा और शालीनता के उच्च मापदंडों को बनाए रखें। सदन में मेरे संज्ञान में ऐसी कई घटनाएं हैं जब माननीय सदस्यों के आसन सदन की उच्च परंपराओं मापदंडों के अनुरूप नहीं है। इस सदन में पिता पुत्री, माँ बेटी, पति पत्नी सदस्य रहें। इस परिप्रेक्ष्य में मेरा नेता परिपक्ष से अपेक्षा है कि लोकसभा प्रक्रिया कान संचालन नियम 349 के वर्णित सभा में पालनीय नियमों के अनुरूप सदन में आचरण व्यवहार करें, जो सदन की मर्यादा और प्रतिष्ठा के अनुरूप रहना चाहिए। मैं पुनः आग्रह करता हूं, इस सदन में विशेष रूप से प्रतिपक्ष के नेता से तो ये अपेक्षा की जाती है कि वो आचरण रखें। सदन की कार्रवाई 2 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
एक चिट्ठी हमने स्पीकर महोदय को दी जिसमें और भी विभिन्न इंडिया अलायंस के नेताओं का हस्ताक्षर है, और हमने अपनी सामूहिक चिंता आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदय के समक्ष रखा कि किस प्रकार से सत्ता पक्ष सदन की परंपरा, नियमों और संस्कृति का उल्लंघन कर रही है।
राहुल गांधी को अगर संसदीय ज्ञान है और देश को गुमराह कर रहे हैं कि इस सदन में कोई किसी को बोलने से रोक नहीं सकता, राहुल गांधी स्वयं सदन में बैठते ही नहीं, लेकिन वो किसी बिल पे नहीं बोलते, किसी विधेयक पे नहीं बोलते, किसी प्रस्ताव पे नहीं बोलते। तो अब खुद आते नहीं, खुद कोई रुचि उनको संसदीय प्रणाली में नहीं है। और इसके बाद ये कहा जा रहा है ये कोई सरकार नहीं है, पार्लियामेंट स्पीकर साहब चलाते हैं, स्पीकर ये कस्टोडियन ऑफ द हाउस। आखिर रोज विपक्ष बोलता है, अगर कांग्रेस के सदस्य बोल सकते हैं तो वो क्यों नहीं बोलेंगे?
All right, I want to go straight across to a face-off tonight. Right at the top of the show, RP Singh is national spokesperson of the BJP and Dr. Ajay Kumar is national spokesperson of the Congress Party. RP Singh, Saab, this is what the leader of the opposition said. Whenever I stand up, I'm stopped from speaking. I did nothing. I was sitting quietly. There is no place for democracy. I wanted to speak on Kumbh Mela. I also wanted to speak on unemployment, but I was not allowed. The speaker just ran away. He did not let me speak. Why aren't you letting the leader of the opposition speak?
Zaka, I never attended the parliament as a parliamentarian, but all little I know about the parliamentary procedure is that 0 hour specifically, he was referring to that he was not allowed to speak dot at 1. 0 hour is between certain time between 12 and 1. I have the detail of the today's 0 hour with me, which I have downloaded for the website of the Lok Sabha. So at dot 1, it gets over, and then you are supposed to speak within that time, but he has to speak after that. There are parliamentary procedures for everything. And also, you just now mentioned about his record sheet of how many debates he attended and all, but in the previous term also, he did a good record. I mean, he attendance was 51%, whereas the national average was 79%. I'm not mentioning about this one. National number of debates was 8 in the last term, whereas national average was 46.7. This time it is 7, and national average is still 9.2, which he is doing better than last time. Number of questions asked, last time it was 99 in the complete 5-year term, whereas national average was 210. Private member bill was almost 0 from his side, whereas national average was 1.5. And how much serious he is about his debates and how much he is serious about his conduct in the parliament, we all know that. And then parliament is not your personal house or your drawing room or your personal place of where you can do whatever you want to do. When he goes and hugs the prime minister, he makes certain symbols which are not as per the norms of the parliament. His conduct is on certain issues is not as per the norms of the parliament. We all know what he did in the last session also, where he did some showed some finger to some parliamentarians where it was objected by female parliamentarians in the parliament itself.
Okay. So anyway, I'll get to that. So Dr. Ajay Kumar, the Speaker has said that especially it is expected of the Leader of the Opposition to conduct himself as per the rules. Rule 349 is what the Speaker cited, the rules of procedure and conduct of business in the Lok Sabha. Interruptions are not allowed, respect for the chair, silence during proceedings when other members are speaking. There's a certain dress code. You can't be displaying badges, flags, emblems, except that for the national flag. No distributing any pamphlets or literature. I mean, he was referring to Rule 349 and saying that the highest standard of decorum is expected from the Leader of the Opposition.
So it's interesting. I mean, RP Singh Saab wanted to go on that way, so I wouldn't have taken that as a point. What is the Prime Minister's attendance record? How many minutes has he spent in the parliament? So it's ridiculous. You know, you are asking Mr. Gandhi on his record. You look at the Prime Minister's attendance, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he speaks and goes away. He doesn't listen to the opposition. Secondly, RP Singh Saab will agree with me that if the Bharatiya Janata Party is a democratic party, then he can speak. If he doesn't agree with his party, he can speak internally and raise issues. Why is it that the opposition is not able to speak after the Prime Minister spoke on Kumbh Mela? By tradition, you always let the leader of the opposition speak. Second issue is, what is this mudslinging? Suppose you had an issue. I've seen whether it is the earlier speakers, and we have had very, very decent speakers. I'm not casting aspersion on Mr. Birla, but question is, do you engage with the opposition, or do you come to the parliament in the Lok Sabha on the floor and make statements? Ramesh Biduri was the poster boy of good behavior, is it? Is the Bharatiya Janata Party going to say, have you seen Mr. Anurag Thakur? Have you seen these people? I mean, I I see on and off the kind of statements they get up and the comments they make, shout. So, one thing, Zaka,
Okay.
I want to ask Mr. R.P. Singh is what is the issue? Why can't the opposition have, they're the government. Why isn't the opposition given the space even in the parliament? We are going to slowly resemble the Russian Duma or some other country. My issue, the second issue is if you have an objection to Mr. You have said that the leader of the opposition has to conduct himself, etc., etc. Has he called the leader of the opposition? What do you expect in a democracy? That the speaker, who is a custodian, would look at all political parties, whether it is the opposition benches or the government benches, and Jaka, I'll ask you, won't you call them and say, listen, this is not expected?
Okay.
But the problem with this government is that the speaker is also behaving like the party. He
So
must
that
call and
would
raise
be
talk.
a tad unfair. I mean,
No,
you
it's
know, at
not
the end of the
that.
day, he's
I don't
sitting in
want
a
to-
constitutional position. It's not an enviable job. But anyway, I think a fair point that you've asked, which Mr. R.P. Singh should respond to, that the job of running the House is that of the government side, that of the Treasury benches. And every time the convention has been, sir, that every time the leader of the opposition stands up and says he or she wants to make a point, generally the speaker allows that person to speak. Mr. Gandhi is alleging in December 2024, he said BJP MPs blocked our way with sticks in hand. In November 2024, we were not allowed to raise crimes against Dalits. That is an issue that's close to his heart in Parliament. In March 2023, he says mics are often silenced in Parliament. He also says cameras are never shown on the opposition. I mean, these are all charges he's laying at the doorstep of the Treasury benches. R.P. Singh.
Well, Zaka, he is not referring to the flying kisses he has given the Parliament. Why is he not referring to that? Well, it's shocking. I mean, his conduct in Parliament is not conducive of any mature person. But coming to your last point, I will appreciate. Ask your team to do a little research and then please tell your audience that how much opposition leader is being shown. I mean, every time he speaks, he is being shown on the TV, on the camera. I watch parliamentary debates regularly, and he's probably shown the most in the opposition. But yes, you have to make an issue out of anything, nothing. But other issue is that why could he go to the Om Birla himself instead of going to public first or going to media first? He's going to go to Om Birla and said, "Sir, this is an issue. I'm the leader of the opposition. These are a specific point which you're raising. Probably Congress would have released in the press release or they would have put on their Twitter handle. Well, he could have gone himself to the
Okay.
Om Birla ji, to the Speaker of the House and had made a request, sir, this is the occasions I am not being allowed to speak, and Speaker would have taken account of that and would have satisfied him. But no, he has to play a victim card out of everything.
So
There's a new
Dr.
theory.
Ajay Kumar, you know, why is no other opposition party or opposition leader making the same allegation that his or her voice is being muzzled? You haven't heard Akhilesh Yadav say that in Parliament. You haven't heard anybody from the TMC say that in Parliament, or any other opposition party say that, oh, their leaders are not being allowed to speak.
No. First of all, Zaka, I don't know if you, please correct me if I'm wrong. All the opposition leaders went and met the speaker. If I remember, what is in the public domain? Because I don't know who, the TMC went and RJD went and DMK went, and everybody went with the speaker and they signed the paper with 70 MPs. I mean, Congress MPs have signed, but the delegation was an opposition delegation. So, and Gaurav Gogoi also made it clear and on your clip only. My question is, and R.P. Singh Saab, if we are all wanting the good of the country, why is it that the respected traditions of the Parliament, of giving a chance, forget everything else, you don't like us, you dislike us and all, why can't you respect the traditions of getting the leader of the opposition to speak? It is always, when I was in the Parliament, and I'm just saying, R.P. Singh Saab is a sensible man, so I'm quite sure he'll accept what I'm saying, I hope so. Sushma Swaraj ji would always be given the due respect. Now, my only question is, it is mandatory for the government in power to extend that courtesy, and then see whether the opposition responds. You're the guy who's running the show. So, Zaka, my only question is, why is it difficult for the Bharatiya Janata Party or the NDA government to extend courtesies.
Okay.
And maybe they may be having reasons to be aggrieved with us, and that is, I'm not even saying that, but why can't this parliament be less acrimonious?
Okay.
Like the politics it is, and it's very whether it is they must remember their old leaders, like Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Arun Jaitley and all that, and on our side all the leaders would extend courtesy to each other. They
Okay.
never gave an inch. And it looks like it was as if a bygone era, which is never seemed to come back.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Dr. Ajay Kumar, Siddhar RP Singh for joining us. We'll see. There's one more week of Parliament left, if anything changes at all, or whether it gets even more acrimonious between government and the opposition benches. We will keep an eye out. Meanwhile, the government is all set to bring the Waqf Amendment Bill next week in the Lok Sabha, and that again is expected to be very, very acrimonious between ruling and treasury ruling benches and the opposition benches. The idea is to abolish these Waqf boards and their holding of major land parcels across the country. Already, this is creating fissures both between the BJP-led NDA and the opposition, and also now within the wider NDA alliance, or potentially those who could come into the wider NDA alliance. Now, a couple of days ago, you saw the AIADMK Supremo and former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Mr. EPS meet with Amit Shah and JP Nadda in the capital. A lot of speculation about a possible alliance. Today, one of the divergences came to the fore. The Tamil Nadu Assembly today passed an anti-Waqf resolution, which was brought forth by the ruling DMK government led by Mr. MK Stalin. Interestingly, the BJP walked out while this resolution was being put to vote. The AIADMK voted along with the resolution, along with all the other parties, in favor of a resolution that was brought forth by the ruling party, the DMK. Remember, the ADMK and the DMK cannot see each other eye to eye on most issues. But on this issue, they went along with the sense of the House. They went along with the unanimous view of the House, but the BJP abstained. So the question then is the split on issues like Waqf, etc., happening even before this alliance has formally taken shape? So let's tell you what exactly is the contention around this Waqf Amendment Bill. The Joint Parliamentary Committee, or JPC, which was tasked with looking at amending the Waqf Act, that itself has been a political battleground. 14 opposition MPs were there. They squared off against the ruling bloc across 38 meetings. 111 hours of heated debate happened over a 5-month period. They in fact spoke to and heard from 250 different delegations, whether it is Waqf boards, state officials, Muslim groups, and sifted through a staggering 1.5 crore public representative petitions. In fact, you could see in the last session of the Parliament, these huge boxes and these huge suitcases full of these documents of the Waqf Amendment Bill, the draft bill being circulated among members of the JPC. So a huge deluge of voices, and finally they've distilled and arrived at this draft bill. Now, nowhere in sight is a elusive consensus, a political consensus on how to reform the holding of these large land parcels by the Waqf boards across the country. Now, the debate surrounding the Waqf Amendment Bill has sparked a heated divide between the government on the one hand, opposition on the other, and there's also now Muslim groups on the outsides, and they're all presenting very starkly different and starkly contrasting arguments. The government argues that the amendments to the Waqf Bill are designed to benefit marginalized Muslims, offering them reforms that could bring positive change to their community. In contrast, Muslim groups say that the bill is an affront to their community, claiming that it poses a threat to Muslim rights and to autonomy, particularly regarding religious properties. The government says that it has consulted with Muslim leaders and various Muslim organizations during the drafting of the bill, and their inputs were specifically considered. Muslim groups, on the other hand, argue that no meaningful consultation was conducted, suggesting that their concerns were either ignored or overlooked entirely. The government claims that the bill will extend rights to those who have historically been excluded, offering a sense of empowerment to the disadvantaged individuals. Muslim groups, on the other hand, counter that the bill is not about empowerment, but allowing government control over Waqf properties, effectively undermining their autonomy. The government also insists that the bill will not interfere with the freedom of religious bodies, emphasizing that it's not an attempt to impose control over religious practices, but Muslim groups argue that the bill would encroach upon religious freedoms by Muslims by giving the government undue influence.
வக்ஃப் சட்டத்தை ஒன்றிய அரசு திருத்த நினைக்கிறது. இதன் மூலம் மத்திய வக்ஃப் கவுன்சில் மற்றும் மாநில வக்ஃப் வாரியங்களின் கட்டமைப்பு மாற்றப்பட்டு அரசாங்கத்தின் கட்டுப்பாடு அதிகரிக்கிறது. இது வக்ஃப் நிறுவனங்களின் சுயாட்சியை பாதிக்கும். வக்ஃப் நிலங்களை நில அளவை செய்யும் அதிகாரம் நில அளவை ஆணையரிடமிருந்து மாவட்ட ஆட்சியருக்கு மாற்றப்பட்டுள்ளது. இதன் மூலமாக வக்ஃப் நிலவரம் குறித்து முடிவு செய்யும் அதிகாரம் வக்ஃப் வாரியத்திடமிருந்து நீக்கப்பட்டுள்ளது. அரசு சொத்து என்று அடையாளம் காணப்பட்ட அல்லது அறிவிக்கப்பட்ட வக்ஃப் சொத்து இந்த சட்டம் தொடங்குவதற்கு முன் அல்லது பின் என்றாலும் வக்ஃப் சொத்தாக கருதப்படாது என்று இந்த சட்டம் கூறுகிறது. இது அரசுக்கு சொத்துக்களை மறுவகைப்படுத்தப்படும் அதிகாரத்தை அளிக்கிறது. 5 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு குறையாமல் இஸ்லாமிய பின்பற்றிய ஒரு நபர் மட்டும் வக்ஃப் அறிவிக்க முடியும் என்று கட்டுப்படுத்துகிறது.
All right, so what are the differences that still need to be ironed out between the AIADMK and the BJP? Let me go across straight to R.K. Radhakrishnan, Senior Associate Editor with Frontline. Thank you very much, R.K., for speaking with us. So we had EPS come to Delhi, meet with Amit Shah, meet with JP Nadda, and 2 days later, today, in the Assembly, the AIADMK votes for the Waqf resolution that was brought forth by the DMK, but the BJP abstains. This is just one example of how both parties may not necessarily be on the same page.
I think the meeting in Delhi was something else. It has nothing to do with the alliance. I also have reasons to believe that, there is a problem in the AIADMK, which basically relates to the symbols case, which is now again being picked up in the High Court. It has possibility to do with that than the BJP relationship itself, because you know that Edappadi Palaniswamy has very clearly said that he cannot be in an alliance when the state leader is Annamalai. Now, BJP is not going to throw away Annamalai merely because Edappadi Palaniswamy doesn't like him. But then what kind of a alliance arithmetic will work out when the leaders of 2 major parties don't talk to each other in an alliance? That is the issue that I think probably Delhi is grappling with, BJP is grappling with, as well as the AIADMK. Now that they've made a statement, they can't go back on it. That is pretty much where it stands as of now.
I do want to ask you 2 follow-up questions. As far as the EPS Annamalai equation is concerned, it's well known that they don't particularly, like each other. But having said that, Mr. Annamalai has been, called for a meeting with Amit Shah today. I believe that some messages are going to be conveyed to him, so on and so forth. Is it possible that they work out an arrangement where EPS can speak directly to the national leadership of the BJP without having to, depend on Mr. Annamalai? Would that be good enough for Mr. EPS to say yes to this alliance?
Yeah, absolutely. As far as EPS is concerned, he needs to keep the party intact. He needs the symbol for that. There is no other way. And you would know, Zaka, that he has lost the 2019 elections, Lok Sabha elections, through 2021 Assembly elections and 2024. He is actually back into a corner. He is willing to take any ally who comes along. But then the main requirement for the ahead of the 2026 elections is that he preserves the symbol. For that, he is willing to do any compromise. The only compromise that he cannot be seen as doing is talking to Annamalai at the state level for an alliance. So obviously, he'll be he'll be fine with talking to anybody in Delhi regarding the alliance, yes.
What about the other factions, TTV and Shashikala and OPS? Apparently, EPS told the BJP leadership that they can't have any truck with them. They're already part of the NDA from whatever I understand. You think the BJP would dump them for Mr. EPS?
No, I don't think that's the way the BJP does business. At least Modi's BJP does business. It doesn't, abandon old friends. So I think something like the 2016 equation where, BJP literally took the seats and then divided the seats among the allies that it wanted to carry along, that could be a formula. Now, for instance, the BJP gets, say, 40 seats in an AIADMK alliance. It is possibly going to divide those seats among followers of, Amma Kachi, which is our great Dinakaran's party and OPS's party and Shashikala's party, but Shashikala doesn't pretty much have a party. So it's just to accommodate 2 people, probably 4 or 5 seats. That's it.
And one final word: how is the DMK viewing all of this? Because they would rather that the index of opposition unity is splintered with all of these various parties, whether it's AIADMK on the one hand, BJP NDA on the other, and then of course there is the unknown, unsaid factor about Vijay and his TVK. But if AIADMK and BJP do come together, would that pose some degree of discomfort to the DMK?
Not at all. In fact, actually, I'm very sure that the DMK, if there are people going to temples and praying, will be doing just this, that the BJP and the AIADMK should come together, which will actually dent the AIADMK's chances of coming back to power in 2026. And with that happening, and Vijay and probably Seeman coming together and taking away another 20% of the vote, DMK is extremely well poised to win the 2026 elections. And it's very clear that the DMK's best case scenario is Vijay and AIADMK not coming together. And that will happen once the BJP has any truck with the AIADMK, because Vijay has made it very clear that he's not going to have any truck with either the party at the center or the party at the state level.
All right.
Which is in government law.
R.K. Radhakrishnan, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us with your perspective. Thank you. The Lok Sabha has passed the Immigration and Foreigners Bill 2025. The Immigration and Foreigners Bill is a comprehensive legislation to regulate all matters relating to foreigners and immigration. Union Home Minister Amit Shah said that those who pose a threat to national security will not be allowed to enter the country. He also asserted that India is not a dharamshala where everyone can be given refuge. Replying in the Lok Sabha on the Immigration and Foreigners Bill 2025, Shah hit out at the Trinamool Congress over infiltration across the India-Bangladesh border. He also said that the BJP would put an end to it after the 2026 West Bengal Assembly elections. So let's take a look at what the bill actually says and what it aims to do. The bill hopes to minimize national security threat. No foreigner is allowed if there is a security threat emanating from him or her. The immigration officer's decision will be binding on whether or not the person will be allowed to enter India's borders. Officers can detain, they can investigate, and they also have powers to deport if they suspect someone is a threat to India's national security. There will also be heavy penalties for anyone who enters without requisite documents. Now, what are the penalties or the penal behavior that's being imposed as per this new bill? For illegal entry, and if you're caught for illegally entering India, then a punishment of 5 years of imprisonment or 5 lakh rupees fine. For document forging, and this has been a constant sort of theme when it comes to some of the allegedly illegal Bangladeshi immigrants into India, forged documents, forged Aadhaar cards and PAN cards and driving licenses. The bill has a provision of up to 7 years imprisonment, 3 years imprisonment and 3 lakh rupees fine for overstaying in India.
ये 450 किलोमीटर फेंसिंग रुकी है तो केवल और केवल बंगाल सरकार की दया की दृष्टि घुसपैठियों के पर जो है इसके कारण, और मान्यवर इससे आगे ये 450 किलोमीटर शायद ये भाषण सुनकर ममता जी भूमि दे भी दे तो हम खत्म कर देंगे, फिर भी 112 किलोमीटर खुली सीमा रहती है। तो 112 किलोमीटर जो नदी है, नाले हैं, एक कठिन भौगोलिक परिस्थिति है, वहां से लोग आते हैं। ये सवाल हमें करते हैं, अभी भी किया कि रोहिंग्या दिल्ली तक आ गए, आपके नाक के नीचे आया। मान्यवर, ये बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठे हो या रोहिंग्याज हो जो घुस कर आते हैं, पहले असम से भी आते थे जब कांग्रेस की सरकार, अब बंगाल से आते हैं टीएमसी की सरकार। इमिग्रेशन एक प्रकार से आइसोलेटेड मुद्दा नहीं है, देश के कई मुद्दे इसके साथ जुड़े हुए हैं और कई प्रकार के मुद्दे डायरेक्टली नहीं तो इनडायरेक्टली इसके साथ जुड़ते हैं। हमारे देश की सीमा में कौन आता है, कब आता है, कितनी अवधि तक आता है और किस उद्देश्य तक आता है, ये जानने का अधिकार इस देश की सुरक्षा के लिए बहुत जरूरी है।
All right, I want to move on to Karnataka, where a city civil and sessions court in Bengaluru rejected the bail application of actor Rania Rao, who was arrested in connection with a gold smuggling case. The 33-year-old actress was arrested on the 3rd of March after she was caught at the airport in Bengaluru carrying as much as 14.5 kilograms of gold while she was returning from Dubai. A Karnataka probe panel, which is looking into the protocol violation and the dereliction of duty of her personal security officer, is likely to submit its report today in connection with that case. This is the third time that Rania Rao's bail application has been rejected. A special court for economic offences back on the 14th of March had turned down her request for bail. Her legal team is now preparing to move the Karnataka High Court for bail, as per certain media reports. Rania Rao was arrested at the Kempegowda International Airport in Bengaluru on the 3rd of March when she returned from Dubai. She was carrying on her person 12.5 crore rupees worth of gold. Just imagine, 12.5 crore rupees worth of gold on her person. Further searches at her residence revealed gold jewellery worth over 2 crore rupees and currency worth over 2.5 crore rupees that were recovered from her residence. During her interrogation, Rania allegedly admitted that the money was used to purchase the gold. It was transferred through Hawala channels, and eventually her job was to be a conduit to try and transport the gold from Dubai to the Bengaluru airport. This also came after the Bengaluru Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, the DRI, made its third arrest in connection with this case. A gold dealer was arrested for allegedly assisting Rania Rao in disposing of the smuggled gold. Sahil Sakaria Jain was presented before a magistrate on the 26th of March, leading to authorities securing 4 days of custody for further investigation. The DRI believes that Sahil's involvement is crucial in unraveling a larger smuggling network. He's accused of aiding Rania Rao in the disposal of the smuggled gold and then sharing the proceeds from its sale multiple times over. It was evidenced by his statements in the DRI arrest memo. Before Sahil's arrest, Rania Rao and her business associate Tarun Kondaru Raju were both apprehended in connection with the racket. Her personal security officer, a constable named Baswaraju, was also picked up by the police.
In a major setback to Rania Rao, the Sessions Court here in Bengaluru has rejected her bail plea. This after elaborate arguments. The DRI had stiffly opposed giving bail to Rania Rao, saying that there is a risk that she might go ahead and tamper with evidence and also the possibility that she could hamper further probe. The DRI had pointed out that it wasn't just a mere case of somebody smuggling gold. This was an international syndicate that was at play. They had also said that Rania Rao had indulged in Hawala transaction. That needs to be probed as well. On the other hand, a third person has been arrested, Sahil, and the arrest memo that CNN News 18 has access shows that the DRI has told that Sahil had not just helped Rania Rao go ahead and sell this gold. They believe that he's someone who assisted and abetted Rania Rao in this whole process of selling gold, and also he had got at least a part of the proceeds of this sale, and they believe that he was an active member in this entire syndicate, and that needs to be probed further. Sahil is a gold dealer. He's from Bellary. His family is in Bellary. The DRI has his custody now. The DRI further probing because they believe that this is a much wider syndicate that might have other people as well. And remember, there have been several transactions that are also under the scanner by DRI. And with the Sessions Court now refusing to give bail to Rania Rao, she will have to now approach the High Court seeking a bail. In the meanwhile, DRI continues its probe in this entire matter. It's not just Rania Rao. They are also looking at various other angles, involvement of other people, also probing in depth the involvement of two other accused, Sahil and Tarun as well. That is also being probed by DRI to find out how much has been, in terms of gold, how much has been smuggled into India, because they've also mentioned multiple times that at least 2-3 times earlier as well, gold has been smuggled to India. So they will have to recover that. They will also have to look at other people involved in this case.
All right, Donald Trump has done it. The 47th President of the United States has delivered on his long-standing threat, and that was to hit global automakers with a steep 25% tariff on imported cars and auto parts. 25% tariff will be applied to all imported passenger vehicles into America, whether it is sedans, whether it is SUVs, crossovers, minivans, cargo vans, light trucks, even automobile parts. It's not just fully assembled cars that will be hit with a 25% tariff. Even auto parts like engines, transmissions, powertrain parts, electrical components, doors, you name it, all of it will now face the steep 25% auto tariff. The tariffs could be expanded to additional parts if necessary. Basically, even if the car is entirely assembled in the United States, but it has parts that are imported from the rest of the world, then those cars will be hit with a 25% tariff.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We're going to make it all countries, and we're going to make it very lenient. I think people are going to be very surprised. It'll be, in many cases, less than the tariff that they've been charging us for decades.
So government sources have told CNN News 18 that the 25% tariff could affect India's automobile industry significantly, but we are ready to slash some tariffs, whether it's on bikes or smaller passenger cars. The bulwark that has been created over the last few months in anticipation of tariffs, and thus many SOPs and benefits have already been announced for the electric vehicle sector, for example, that has led to some growth. Sources also saying that GST rate cuts and cuts in customs duties give the government hope that these measures could protect some customers. This apart, Tesla has also been given a level playing field. It is hoped that with increased competition, indigenous car manufacturers, whether it's Mahindra & Mahindra, Tata Motors Limited, they will pull up their performance both in the EV side as well as in the regular passenger vehicle side. Now, according to a CLSA report, 33% of Jaguar Land Rover, which is owned by Tata Motors, 33% of JLR volumes come from the United States. Jaguar Land Rover does not have any production facility in the United States. They mainly import their cars from the United Kingdom and then sell it in the United States. Jaguar Land Rover accounts for 70% of Tata Motors' consolidated revenue. US tariffs on these imported cars, 25% straight, it risks putting Tata Motors' 20% plus consolidated revenue under severe strain.
Auto stocks were under pressure in today's trade, and this on the back of announcement by US President Donald Trump. He announced that he would be imposing 25% tariffs on all the auto cars that are not made in the US. Also, as per reports, tariffs can be imposed on auto parts as well, and these tariffs will be effective April 2. So which all Indian companies will be impacted? First on the list is Tata Motors. US is one of the important markets for JLR, which forms nearly 30% of its total volumes. But the important point is JLR does not have the production facility in the US, and all the cars that JLR sells in the US market are imported from other countries. Also, JLR forms nearly 70% of Tata Motors' consolidated revenue, and due to this tariff, impact can be of more than 20%. Second in the list is Samvardhana Motherson. This company won't be impacted directly, but it would be impacted indirectly as Samvardhana Motherson supplies auto parts to those automakers which export cars to US market, and here the impact is seen in the range of 6 to 7%. Next in the list is companies related to auto parts, because reports suggest tariffs can come on auto parts as well, and here first one is Balkrishna Industries, for which nearly 17% revenue comes from the US market, and second in the list is Sona BLW, for which US forms nearly 43% of its total revenue. Last one is bike and truck segment. As of now, US government has not announced any tariff, but if US government announces tariff, first in the list is Eicher Motors Royal Enfield, for which 2 to 3% of total volumes come from the US market, so this company can be impacted. Second in the list is Bharat Forge, for which North America forms nearly 40% to its total standalone revenue. And lastly, that list is Ramkrishna Forging, for which North America contributes nearly 30% to its total revenue. So these are some of the Indian companies which might be impacted due to US auto tariffs.
President Trump dismissing the massive security breach created by his top national security officials because the operation was ultimately successful.
There was no harm done because the attack was unbelievably successful that night.
Fareed Zakaria, host of Fareed Zakaria, GPS, is here now. So, Fareed, what does this whole incident reveal about this administration?
Well, it's a great question. Let me just begin by pointing out, Aaron, that we don't know that the attack was successful. Saudi Arabia inflicted these kind of bombing attacks on the Houthis for years and were ultimately not successful in actually defanging them. So, but put that aside for a minute. Look, what the broader issue this reveals is an administration that has kind of contempt for the processes and institutions of the liberal democratic state that the United States has built. You know, it's go into a department if you're Doge, don't bother to learn anything about the process or the procedures, fire everybody. You're at the NIH, just stop all the grants. You know, there have been these elaborate procedures by which scientists get funded. No, stop that all. Go into the courts, and the courts ask you for documentation, for reasons why you're deporting people. And they just don't provide them. They're effectively defying court orders, and the courts and the judges are saying, look, you're not following the normal procedures we do. So this is really, to my mind, the most vivid example of this complete disrespect for the institutions, the norms, the procedures by which the American state, the American democracy has been functioning, because they, you know, a lot of these people have contempt for all of this. This is at the end of the day to them the deep state. Well, what this reveals is sometimes it's the deep state has deep security procedures for a reason, to protect lives.
A leaked Signal group chat. Top Trump national security officials and detailed military strike plans against Yemen. Discussed casually in real time on an unsecured app. The Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, was mistakenly added to the Signal group. Inside the chat, senior Trump aides discussing a pending military operations. Almost immediately, emojis flew and updates began. The group was called Houthi PC Small Group. 19 members. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz set the chat to auto-delete messages. After 1 week later, he extended it to 4. Waltz tried to explain Goldberg's accidental inclusion, claiming Signal may have glitched or that he saved Goldberg's number under the wrong name. Either way, the reporter now had a front row seat to a secret op. The disappearing message timer, standard practice for privacy, now raised legal alarms. Under U.S. law, war deliberations are subject to federal record-keeping rules. Then came the strategy. Waltz wrote that a principals group was being formed. That term, normally reserved for the National Security Council's highest tier, was now casually mentioned on Signal. Soon, top Trump loyalists were handing out positions to Mike Needham for state, Andy Baker for VP, Joe Kent, Scott B., Pete Hegseth, all assigned key portfolios in a group chat. Waltz informed the team that President Trump's guidance had already been shared via their high-side inboxes, a classified email system. This note confirmed that classified planning had already occurred elsewhere in secure spaces like the White House Situation Room. But Signal was still being used to coordinate public-facing decisions. J.D. Vance expressed concern that Trump's messaging on Yemen contradicted his tone on Europe, warning of potential oil price spikes, but others were more focused on the optics. Joe Kent chimed in with logistics. He mentioned sending unclassed data on BAM shipping, a reference to operations protecting international trade lanes. John Ratcliffe, CIA director, confirmed active mobilization and ongoing intelligence work on Houthi leadership. This text was originally withheld by The Atlantic because it bordered on covert operations intel. Hegseth listed important considerations, not military ones, but political optics. Gaza, Ukraine, the economy. He admitted messaging would be tough. Then came a decisive line. Restoring freedom of navigation and re-establishing deterrence, which Biden cratered. Clear intent and clear finger-pointing. Mike Waltz added that European navies didn't have the capability to secure the Red Sea. He suggested the U.S. would handle the strikes and then bill the Europeans. Waltz's tone hardened. Let's add this to the list of reasons why the Europeans must invest in their defense. J.D. Vance added, "I just hate bailing Europe out again." Then came the line that tied it all up. Let's make sure our messaging is tight. Hegseth confirmed the president had 24 hours of decision space. But Stephen Miller shut the door. As I heard it, the president was clear. Then came the go-ahead. At exactly 11:44 a.m. Eastern Time, Pete Hegseth declared the weather favorable. CENTCOM gave the green light. F-18s and strike drones were cleared for launch. Timings, targets, even launch windows all discussed in plain text. At 2:15 p.m., strike drones were on target. Tomahawks were fired. And then Hegseth added the line that shocked experts the most. "We are currently clean on OPSEC." That is, operational security, he said on a civilian app while a journalist watched. As the dust settled, confirmation messages poured in. Waltz shared a chilling update. The building collapsed. The top missile target had entered his girlfriend's home. It was now rubble. This was a live kill confirmation texted casually, but instead of protocols, praise followed emojis, fire symbols, flags, underlined it all. The team in MAL did a great job. MAL, as in Mar-a-Lago, the president's private resort. CENTCOM was hailed kudos from everyone in the chat. Even Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, chimed in. Great work and effects. And just like that, an American military operation had been executed, coordinated, discussed, and celebrated in a signal group chat that a journalist had access to. This wasn't a back channel, this was the main channel, used by the Trump administration's top official to plan and cheer a live military strike. And thanks to one accidental ad, the world got to read it all.
The Trump administration just doubled down on Greenland. It's in keeping with Trump's strategy of getting Greenland by hook or by crook. Vice President J.D. Vance announced this week that he was headed to Greenland later this week, taking on a controversial visit. Officials in Greenland have already made it very clear that they don't want any Americans to visit them at this time. Originally, the Trump administration had said that Usha Vance, the second lady and the wife of J.D. Vance, along with Michael Waltz, who is the national security advisor, would be making that trip to Greenland, which is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark.
We need Greenland for national security and international security. So I think we'll go as far as we have to go. We need Greenland.
Trump has long been eyeing Greenland even before he came back to office in January for his second term. Officials from both Denmark and Greenland immediately branded this move as aggressive and part of President Trump's plan to get the island one way or the other. The White House then issued a statement Tuesday afternoon changing up the visit. The new itinerary is for both J.D. Vance and Usha Vance to visit the Pitufik space base, which is high above the Arctic Circle. While they're there, they will be receiving a briefing on the Arctic security issues as well as meet with U.S. service members. In a post on X, Vance said that he would just check out what's going on with the security of Greenland.
Hey guys, it's J.D. Vance, the Vice President, and you know there was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself, and so I'm going to join her. I'm going to visit some of our guardians in the Space Force on the northwest coast of Greenland and also just check out what's going on with the security there of Greenland. As you know, it's really important. A lot of other countries have threatened Greenland, have threatened to use its territories and its waterways to threaten the United States, to threaten Canada, and of course to threaten the people of Greenland. So we're going to check out how things are going there.
Anti-Trump sentiment has been rising steadily on Greenland, and activists there have already been preparing to protest the arrival of the American delegation. All the way starting at the international airport in the capital Nuuk to the famous dog sled race that Usha Vance was supposed to attend. But now it seems that the Vance couple may not be going to Nuuk at all. The United States has a long-standing defense agreement with Denmark, as per which it can station troops in Greenland. There are about 150 troops of the US, and American officials can visit that base at will. Foreign policy analysts are saying that they expect the Vances to travel directly to the space base in Pituffik, which is nearly 1,000 miles north of Nuuk, the capital, and thereby avoid the protest that is brewing in the capital. Greenland officials have also emphasized that they were never invited Vance or Waltz in the first place, but they have very little control over who visits the US Army base. Initially, the plan was for Usha Vance and one of her sons to watch the dog sled race, the famous Greenland tradition, in Sisimiut, which is one of Greenland's bigger towns. But the organizers of the dog sled race made a statement over the weekend saying they had not invited Usha Vance or her son to attend the race. The event is open to the public and anyone is free to attend. But a spokeswoman for Usha Vance denied what Greenland said and the organizers of the dog sled race said, saying that she had received multiple invitations for her to attend the Greenland dog sled race. Still, the White House announced that she will no longer be going to the dog sled race. Instead, the Trump administration officials, who had originally planned for Mike Waltz to visit the space base, which is an important piece of US missile defense and is critically important now in the ongoing war in Ukraine. But Mike Waltz seems to have his own set of problems to deal with. He's now embroiled in this massive controversy over the addition of a journalist to a sensitive military signal group to try and discuss sensitive war plans. Now that that controversy is brewing, Waltz's participation in the trip to Greenland itself is uncertain and doubtful. So as the news broke that Vance would be arriving instead of Waltz, Greenland's government was not one bit pleased. Politicians in Greenland are embroiled in delicate coalition negotiations over who will form the island's next government. Earlier this month, Greenland held parliamentary elections, but the outcome was mixed. No single party has won a clear majority. So the party which finished first is willing to tie up with the party that finished third. The party that finished third, of course, was the ruling party, but they have lost majority. Both party number 1 and party number 3 want to have nothing to do with America or with Trump. The party which finished second seems to be more inclined to doing business with Trump. Some political analysts in Denmark say that the decision to send J.D. Vance instead of Waltz was an escalation. They choose to double down on it, massively escalate to what they feel is now a provocative show of force by sending J.D. Vance. Analysts have been pointing to comparisons with Crimea, the region that was forcibly annexed by Russia in 2014, where in the run-up to it, the lines between diplomacy and provocation were deliberately blurred. Eventually, Russia conquered and to this day controls Crimea. Greenland too, much like Crimea, is rich in mineral resources, which Donald Trump is eyeing. Earlier in January, Trump's elder son Don Jr. had visited Greenland. He too was not entirely welcome there. Since World War II, American forces have been stationed on Greenland. Once it was called the Thule Air Base, now known as the Pituffik Space Base. The US-operated installation in northwestern Greenland is one of the most strategically important military sites in the world. About 150 US Air Force and Space Force personnel are permanently stationed in Pituffik. They will be expected to play warm hosts to the Vance couple over the weekend.
सस्ते वाले
Donald Trump says China could get a discount on tariffs if it agrees to a US takeover of TikTok. He floated the idea in comments Wednesday.
Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok.
TikTok parent firm ByteDance has an April 5th deadline to find a non-Chinese buyer for the short video app. Otherwise, it will face a US ban over national security concerns. That had been due to kick in just before Trump took office. but the new president delayed enforcement until April. With some 170 million users in the US, TikTok's fate is a big concern for many Americans. But getting Beijing's approval for any deal has always looked like a sticking point. Trump has repeatedly used tariffs as a bargaining chip and has imposed a new 20% levy on Chinese exports since returning to power. Now he thinks China might find a discount offer tempting.
Sounds like something I do.
Vice President J.D. Vance has said he expects the general terms of an agreement to be in place by April 5th. There was no immediate comment on Trump's incentive offer from TikTok.
Another round of tariffs from President Trump before the big one due on April the 2nd. Trump has announced now a 25% tariff on all car imports into the US that he said will go into effect on April the 2nd and that he would begin to start charging the following day. These tariffs would be on top of the tariffs already in place and already announced. The US administration believes that this tax on automobiles will bring in at least $100 billion of new revenue every year, and Trump has said these taxes on automobiles will be permanent. To follow will be tax benefit offers to American buyers of cars built in the US. But this is not going to be a simple and straight tariff. A lot of the cars imported into the US come from Canada and Mexico, and these have components made in the US, and that he said will be proportionally factored into the 25% tariff. The tariffs will be reduced in proportion to the value of an imported car's American-built components. This opens up a nightmare world of certification and accounting. On the other hand, to add to this, the tariff will apply to non-American components of cars built in the US. This would then be a decision particularly hard to implement. It is not clear who will police this, who will carry out inspection and certification of every car or even every lot of cars along these lines, and what the cost of all this would add up to. The automakers most severely hit will be from Mexico, where the US imported about 3 million cars last year worth about $78.5 billion. Then Japan and South Korea with about 1.5 million cars each sent to the US, Canada with 1 million, Germany with 500,000, and as expected the German cars have been on average the costliest. These 500,000 were worth about $25 billion. Exporters in all of these countries could now see a significant fall in sales, and consumers in the US a significant rise in the price of cars, which could lead to far reduced sales, which would hardly help the US economy. The silver lining on Wednesday was the announcement by Trump that come April the 2nd, he is inclined to be lenient with many countries and more lenient than he thinks they have been with the US. And many no doubt hope that will include India.
Donald Trump says China could get a discount on tariffs if it agrees to a US takeover of TikTok. He floated the idea in comments Wednesday.
Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok.
TikTok parent firm ByteDance has an April 5th deadline to find a non-Chinese buyer for the short video app. Otherwise, it will face a US ban over national security concerns. That had been due to kick in just before Trump took office, but the new president delayed enforcement until April. With some 170 million users in the US, TikTok's fate is a big concern for many Americans. But getting Beijing's approval for any deal has always looked like a sticking point. Trump has repeatedly used tariffs as a bargaining chip and has imposed a new 20% levy on Chinese exports since returning to power. Now he thinks China might find a discount offer tempting.
Viewers, let's do some plain speaking tonight. No country can rise above the standard of its justice system. This is an indisputed axiom, a completely undisputable axiom. No nation can call itself great if the impartiality of its courts is doubted. And we stand at a crossroads in history where today more and more Indians are doubting the higher judiciary and its ability to deliver an open justice. Why, viewers? Why is this the case? Because jurists, lawyers, commentators and observers say that the courts in our country refuse to open themselves up to impartial scrutiny. Even a school-going child will tell you that there is deep conflict of interest at work if a system sits in judgment of itself.